Hey traders, TG Watkins here. It is August 29th when I'm recording this. Hope you guys are doing well. It is a 3-day weekend, so if you guys show up on Monday at your computer and it's very quiet, now you know why. All right, so remember, we also have some specials going on. It is going to be the Labor Day sale. So if you guys have ever been looking to pick up anything related to the Moxie Indicator, the classes, you name it, this is a great time to do it. It's going to be running for a few more days. It's going to be 20% off with the code LABOR2025. And if you come over here, I want to show you guys what this looks like. So if you come over to simplertrading.com and then you get the hyperlink up there. So what you're going to be getting is through the basic course, you've got the Moxie Indicator, you've got the Moxie class. This is the thing where I teach everybody how to actually use this. And then, of course, you get the install session, the watch list, and the Moxie scans. That's all great, kind of basic stuff. You got to use this in order to get going with the Moxie stuff. But here's the thing that I really want to let people know. And I think that those of you who have signed up and paid for this and already gotten this, went for the live class that I did this is really where some of the good stuff comes into, is it's the leverage ETF breakout class, because we have been seeing just a proliferation of leverage ETFs out there, and I trade them well. I enjoy them. There are a lot of benefits to them, and there's some secrets about how these things actually work that help disclose and uncover some really big trades and setups out there that I think you guys should be aware of. So a lot of people have had really, really great feedback about the leverage ETF class. That is also how I made the 2,000% gain on SOXL. I turned $38,000 into 680, somewhere around there, $680,000. It was a 2,000% gain on $38,000. So do the math on that one. And then 0DTE SPX breakout class. This, so for me as a stock trader, learning how to teach basically teaching myself how to trade options and all this stuff. I've been with Simpler for years, and I've never really been much of one to trade options, even though everybody around me does. And it wasn't until I started to explore the world of 0DTE options, and then I used my charts and the way that I visualize this to really experience options in a whole different way visually. And this, for me, since I'm a technical trader, I like to use charts, this really unlocked and opened my eyes to a lot of things about how options move. And this is really actually basically day trading. SPX options really helped me now understand how to trade options longer term, whether it be swing trading or even leaps, which I just made a video on if you guys want to check that out. So I think that these are definitely reasons to sign up for this class and pick up on a discount right here for Labor Day. So be sure to check that out. You can come over here to any of our hyperlinks anywhere over at Simpler Trading, and you can just call in, email us for support, any kind of questions like that. All right, so now that we have that out of the way, I want to talk a little bit about the market. As you guys might know, it's kind of been a little bit slow. Market's been largely sideways. Yes, there were some moves after Jerome Powell came out and said that basically started hinting at interest rate cuts, for September. Yes, we did get some spikes, and yes, some things moved up, but some of that's kind of settled down. Like if you go look at Ethereum, and it didn't help Bitcoin at all, and a lot of these things have kind of been given back. I'm going to chalk that up to we have seasonal weakness. I'm going to talk more about that too. But one of the bigger moves that we had was RR. This is a robotics company, and I saw this thing pop up. We jumped on it, and then within 2 days it went up to a max of plus 60%. But again, when you get 60% in 2 days, of course the market's going to pull back, because it's just, it's too much to handle. And so it's settling right now at 27%. Not too shabby. I'm very happy with this thing, and I'm happy that we were on board with this thing right away. And we continue to see good news come out from that stock and that company. DNA and ELF, they could not be more different from like their sectors and what they do as far as their companies. One of them is AI and genomics. The other one is beauty products. But what I've been doing is I've been teaching a lot of people in the Moxie room about the similar setup that I'm seeing with this. And if you guys go look at ELF, you'll notice that it popped basically this week. It had a great move. And if you look at DNA, you'll notice that it was up today when very few stocks were up today. And so I'd love to show you guys more about this, but I don't want to do it here. If you guys are interested, come over to simplertrading.com/Moxie, and you can sign up for a 30-day trial for $7. You can come in, you can see me talk about this, and you can start picking some stuff up. But I'd love to see you actually join the room, because this is where I teach and talk about everything I do and how we take trades like this and actually do well with them. TTAN, this is another one that I wanted to show you. It's actually been holding up pretty well, and this one this is our second entry into this. The first one we had to get out about break even because, for whatever reason, it just wasn't ready to go up, but now it's holding again, and we're back in it, and we're up a little bit. So I'm happy about this, and again, more reasons as to why I got into this if you guys come into the Moxie trading room. Okay, so now we can kind of come over. Let's go talk about the overall market, what's been going on. Remember that this is for educational purposes only, and since you guys are seeing this most likely on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe, and that way you can get more of these videos. Okay, so if we look at how the market went through August, let's just look at that. Let me kind of zoom out here, and then we can talk a little bit more about some of the more interesting things that I want to show you, especially the volume that I'm seeing through the market. Pretty interesting stuff in the middle part of this video. But yeah, look what's been going on here. Basically, yes, we've been climbing up. In fact, we did make new all-time highs. That's great. I don't always love new all-time highs because sometimes they can be a trick. That was a new all-time high and we got a huge pullback. That was a new all-time high and we got a pullback. And here we have a new all-time high and, well, we got a pullback today. So, it's nice to know, but it doesn't always just mean to jump all in at a new all-time high. A lot of times you can see a new all-time high and, well, you're going to get a pullback. So it's nice to know that the S&P is still strong like that, but we've been seeing numerous other indices basically just kind of going sideways. And so the question I have is, August was pretty good, as far as being that it was supposed to be weak, and actually we were sideways to up. But what about September? There is still a lot of data out there that says September, yeah, should be kind of weak, and even if August is strong-ish, September is going to be weak. And I kind of wonder what that's going to look like. So I do kind of figure that we might start getting some moves down because we still amazingly have not tested the daily 50 on the SPX. Now we've tested it on stuff like ARKK or the NASDAQ. IWM's kind of doing its own thing. Even the SMH has tested its daily 50. So I'm kind of wondering what's going to be happening since we're getting a little bit of divergence between all the indices. Again, I would not be surprised if at some point the SPX comes down and touches the daily 50. Maybe it even goes below it. We'll have to see how that looks. I was certainly expecting it back here. I was wondering if it was going to happen here. It's still kicking the can down the road, and so I wonder if September, if maybe that's what's going to happen. So I'm just being prepared out there. Just we need to not be surprised when things like this happen, and just be ready for it. And I think the other thing is, when I look at the weekly chart, this has also been extremely strong in the fact that the market has been staying over the weekly 8. Now again, I know I've had a few videos out here. I keep looking for price to break the weekly 8 and come down towards the weekly 21. I'm having to kind of moderate that a little bit. Okay, maybe we don't get that. If it starts to show up, hey, I'll take some short trades, fine. But if this does not break down or head down to the weekly 21, fine. Maybe we just kind of chop around a little bit and go sideways, which would then at least bring price underneath the weekly 8. So I am prepared that if it does happen, I'm not going to be surprised about that. So then we come over here. Let's see, where was the first one? There we go. And then, yeah, how about some September? I am concerned it's supposed to be weak, but, maybe sideways to down is actually not too bad of a thing. And whatever happens, I think all of this, everything that we're experiencing here, should help set up the market for a good run basically into the end of the year at some point, whenever that happens. Now, as you see here, does the VIX need to cycle? This is another thing that I'm kind of wondering. We know the VIX has been down and down for quite some time, and I'm not going to be saying that we're going to be getting a huge up move or something like that, or a big trend, but I am wondering if we need to have some sort of blip, something like this, some sort of up move, something to kind of allow the market to get some fuel in order to go up. I think it's hard to have the market, getting down here around $15. When the VIX is down here, it's just kind of, yes, it could keep going lower, but it's kind of hard for it to keep going. So I wonder if we kind of need to have some sort of refresh, reset situation. Maybe we need to have kind of a multi-day move for the VIX to get to 20, and that'll kind of buy some air, some altitude for the VIX to come back down from. Again, I don't see anything quite on the radar yet, nothing super that I can really call or talk about. I'm just mentioning it out there so that if things start to shape up that way, we're not going to be surprised or caught off guard. Okay, and so we've talked about the SPX. Let's go look at the RSP. This is the equal weight of the S&P. Now, remember, the whole rest of the market really enjoyed having the idea of interest rate cuts. I mean, you can just see here, this was when Jerome Powell came out there and started to hint about interest rate cuts. The S&P 493 loved it and came up there. But you'll notice how it really didn't go anywhere for the week. Okay, not terrible, but also not rip roaring to the upside. And that's kind of where it feels we got a little bit of a sugar high kind of already at the end of a very, very long night. It's like you're trying to keep drinking caffeine at 3 o'clock in the morning, and at some point, it feels like the market, you're just going to conk out a little bit. And so just, understand that if this doesn't hold up here, maybe we start seeing it come back down and we see about recovery. This is all really great, but at some point, maybe things may get a little bit tired and all, whatnot. So I just want to show you that. And then again, if we come over here and look at the QQQ versus the QQQE, I think I'm seeing some divergences here as well. So here's the NASDAQ, and we know that this thing has been up pretty well, and largely sideways. And you can see here it's almost tagged the daily 50, so just another something to be aware of. But notice how the Moxie Indicator just has not been able to get over 0. I mean, we hit a blip here, but for the most part, the Moxie Indicator has not been able to maintain anything over 0 on the hourly chart for a long time. So this shows us that still, we are either in a consolidation, we're in a flag, maybe this is going to set up for a little bit more of a move to the downside. Maybe we're kind of in chop, and maybe that chop will kind of angle down a little bit, or maybe we kind of get like the band-aid taken off one time, and then we come up like this. I'm just really not sure what's going to be happening, but we need to be prepared for that. And while this does look good with the price over these moving averages, let me show you what the QQQE looks like. And if you look at this and you make it the equal weight, so not cap weight, but equal weight, and you can see here there's just been a whole lot of not much. Just look at this. Not a whole lot really going on here. It kind of feels like, summer doldrums. We got August, we'll see what September does. But if you can see, we've gone from this really, really big up move to kind of a kerplunk. Now we're going sideways. And what if we actually get a little bit more weakness to the downside? It's perfectly possible, and I just want to see what happens if we come down a little bit further. Maybe that'll be the refresh that we need at some point. But yeah, right now, we've got the hourly 50 below the hourly 200. Yes, the Moxie Indicator fired, but I think that's going to be an anomaly, honestly. And we'll just have to kind of see what happens next if this does want to come down a little bit. If I'm wrong, and for whatever reason the market wants to go up, great. We will see this start to go up again like that as well. All right, then let's go look at the IWM, SMH, and then we'll kind of look at some of the other indices. So IWM, same thing with the RSP. Basically, the small caps and the rest of the market really, really enjoyed the idea of lower interest rates, but look at where the IWM is. It is up here hitting that 30 ATR just like it's done several times before. And what happens once it does that? We usually get a pullback. Obviously, this has been in an uptrend, and so pullbacks are not to be too feared, but it does look like we're kind of getting a little bit elevated up here. And if you really even zoom in on the hourly chart right here, that was just too much, because it jumped up like this. It seems like this is a little bit of a short squeeze, but look at this, we're still kind of floating in midair up here. We haven't even touched the hourly 50. And so yeah, I think it would be reasonable to think that we're going to keep seeing some pullbacks and some consolidation for the IWM. And then if we look at the SMH, we can talk about NVIDIA and AMD and some of that kind of stuff. For the most part, you can see that the semiconductors really just kind of sideways. But today we got a pretty big move down, basically letting some air out. And you can see here, again, kind of looked like the IWM jump up from the news about interest rates, but there was a air pocket. Look at that air pocket right there, and then it's come down. And you can see here the Moxie Indicator still below 0. Once again, very similar to the NASDAQ. Moxie Indicator just hasn't really been doing much. Price hasn't been doing much. Moxie Indicator hasn't been doing much. We are coming into the daily 50. Now we kind of need to see if the daily 50 is going to hold or not. It is perfectly possible for price to come below the daily 50, and we'll see if that does like that, and then if that helps refresh stuff. It's just kind of not a whole lot to work with right now because all of this stuff is kind of going sideways. And if you look at FNGS, this is the ETF for the FANG stocks. Same kind of deal. I was looking for shorts in through here, but they keep getting bought back up. So I'm like, okay, I guess they're going up. But also they could not get past their upper range today, or I guess yesterday, right there. Notice the Moxie Indicator still below 0, mostly trending below 0, just kind of staying hovering, and really just kind of staying hovering sideways in through here. And we're gonna have to see what happens with the daily 50. Can price just come in here and then do we keep going up, or does it kind of go through here, chop, and the 50's kind of underneath, or do we kind of come up here? Do we do a little kerplunk, and maybe that'll help us go up like that? A few different paths of what I'm seeing, so we're just gonna have to let it unfold. And if you look at ARKK, same kind of deal. it's very high, very elevated. The Moxie indicator still below zero. I am looking at this as some positive divergence. The Moxie indicator up from a double bottom. That's good to see for right now, but we're not seeing follow through yet. We're going to have to see follow through. Okay, just we're not getting any follow through. Market continues to go sideways, and we're just going to have to be patient to see how this wants to resolve, and just be prepared that if it can't go up, then maybe we kind of start getting some downside moves. Okay, volume. This is the interesting thing. This is where I want to show you guys what's going on. Let me pull this chart over. This is some of my internals grid, and what I want you to see is look at this. Here is basically August. And you can see that yes, there were some exceptions where we had a lot of order flow to the upside, and we had some order flow to the downside. But look at these areas, and what you can see is right here. I mean, here is August 1st. There you go. There's August 1st. And going into the end of August, you can see that we started to have some weakness. We all kind of know that. But then look what happened after that. Sideways, sideways, sideways. There is not much volume pushing this market around. And as you can see, the whole market continues to be sideways. And then if we actually just scroll over here, just look at the difference. Even though the market was going up, there were still certainly some down days. But yeah, you could just see, look at the difference here. You could see even you had some big moves to the downside, but then you can see here lots of moves to the upside, lots of volume pushing this. There was a very little time of this indicator showing that volume, advanced decline volume, was actually in the middle. Very little of that. I mean, look at that. You look at that, and then you come back over here and look at the difference. Very, very different. So if you guys are kind of wondering why the market's not moving, or why if you get into a trade it's not doing much, this is largely the reason. It's just the big boys, the big players, the big funds, and they're just not pushing anything. The market's really going sideways. And we need to figure out if the market is either going to go down because of this, or if we're just going to keep correcting with time, and we just have to kind of sit on our hands and be prepared for whenever the market's ready to get going again. Okay, so then breadth, we're going to kind of largely see the same thing. Let's see, you come over here. We are kind of elevated up here, about 80%. Hit about 80%, so that doesn't like to go that much further. So again, we could kind of start seeing a pullback maybe. And you can see here, the only thing I'm kind of looking at is if the market does come down, I'm wondering if this is a bear flag on the 50-day breadth. Not much to really say about it, but once, maybe give it a few more weeks, and if this does actually start to roll down, I'm going to be able to go back and prove that this looked like a bear flag. It's hard for me to really say much right now, but that's kind of in the back of my mind, so I wanted to pass that along to you all. And I pretty much talked about the VIX, and if we look at the UVIX, the VIX is kind of bumping along, and maybe there could be a move up here. And as far as the UVIX, yeah, it's kind of hard to say that there's much going on here. There is an increase in volume, so if you do kind of just notice, there's been some volume, but it hasn't been doing anything. I mean, this thing has not been able to catch anything other than a couple little blips, a couple little somethings. There has been no trend change. Now, maybe that's going to change. Maybe we're going to start seeing something now that August is closed and we're going to get into September. Maybe. So do keep an eye on this. But I'm going to be hard pressed to think that we're going to get much follow through. If anything, maybe we kind of catch a pop to the upside. Maybe we catch a pop to the upside. Maybe we catch a pop to the upside. But after that, I'm going to see if this thing wants to come back down. If this is going to, if the market's going to have a problem or really, throw a wrench in the system, we should see this thing trend for a little bit. But right now, I just don't see that. The most I could see from this is kind of just a pop, a counter trend pop. And we'll have to see how long that actually goes for. Okay, let me show you RR, because look at this. This is a fantastic name. We have been looking at this for quite some time. In fact, I traded it back through here, and you can see it worked for a little bit, then kind of failed, and I've just kind of been keeping my eye on it. I was getting really close to getting it in through there, but I really wanted to wait for a signal. Well, look at that signal. That's where we bought it, was 2.4. It went all the way up to 60%, and now it's just kind of somewhere in the middle. I'm totally fine with this. I think that this is a longer term picture. Yeah, of course, I could have taken some profits here, but you know what? I think really all I'm more interested in is finding a place to continue to add on something like this, because this name is looking pretty great. I mean, just look at this monthly weekly chart. This thing is just beginning. So I'm very happy to be in this massive volume that came into it, and it really held these moving averages on the weekly time frame fantastically. So yeah, really, really great name. Happy about it, and hopefully the Moxie traders are enjoying themselves in that too. All right, GLD. I've got a couple gold bugs in my my trading room, and I know one of them particularly has been hanging on to this. And yeah, mostly what I've been saying is I thought gold GLD was going to have to flag for a while. I said, hey, let's talk again when GLD comes into its weekly 21. I was expecting a little bit more of an actual touch of the weekly 21, kind of like that. But you could actually say right there was kind of your closest touch of the weekly 21, and I guess that's good enough. But this thing has been resting for quite some time. Maybe this is what the market's going to do. I mean, here's a really good example of basically how, bull flags, and bull flags could resolve, and the SPX and the NASDAQ and all that could do the same thing. Maybe we're just going to go sideways for August, September. Maybe there will be a couple dips, we'll see. But for the most part, then it resolves to the upside. And you can see we're starting to get some nice moves for GLD. So if anybody's trading it, great. It looked like this was about to happen at some point, and looks like it's going. Now, to show you a little bit of a heads up that this was going to happen, look at GDX. And GDX has been doing very, very well. And so, sometimes I trade GDX. I have not been trading the precious metals. It's just, it's not really my thing. So I didn't miss this. We've been talking about it. And I actually put a post out to the Moxie subscribers. And I said, hey, this looks like a bull flag on the daily hourly time for GDX. So if anybody's interested, there you go. And in fact, you can see the price below the 50, but the Moxie indicator above 0 with a squeeze was a great trampoline setup with the Moxie indicator, and you can see that is what set this thing up for the next move to the upside. So if anybody's in it, great, good job. Hope you guys are doing well with it. All right, then let's take a look at Tesla. I thought Tesla was actually doing pretty well, holding up for the last few weeks. Market kind of took a few dips, but then Tesla actually started to get over this breakout trend line and doing pretty well. And then it started to move up. And as far as this goes, again, I think it's the whole market. The whole market's just kind of chilling out, resting. I like generally what's happening here. It's been holding this trend line. It's been breaking out from that trend line. I'm okay with this. I think this is a longer term setup. And I like that it's done a little back test and right here through here. So as long as this doesn't completely fall apart, I'm totally okay with this. And I think that it's making progress to the upside. I mean, it's hard to argue that this wants to go down. It does not look like it wants to go down. So I wouldn't be trading it to the short side. If anything, just be patient on the long side. The TEM, this is another big position that I have, and it had a really nice move a few weeks ago. Market was enjoying it. In fact, with the news about interest rate cuts, this thing had a pretty big move up here. I did put an aggressive call trade on this one. That one's not going to work out, so I had to kind of eat that one. I've still got time on it, but I have very low expectations that's going to work. If anything, I like what's happening, that this is not totally just getting run away. I think that this is now your breakout move, and then I think it's pulled back, and I think it's going to consolidate through here, and we'll see if this can go higher at some point. Again, I think this is a fantastic move. We have been trading this one for quite some time. We have a nice position in it. We're up on it, and now it's just resting. Again, just more examples of the market needing to rest a little bit. Okay, then let's go look at NVIDIA. This was a big, everyone's kind of looking at this one because NVIDIA had earnings. Their earnings were good. It wasn't anything like crazy stellar, anything like knock out the park, but it was really good. It was really, really good. And I think that basically everything was already factored in. NVIDIA was priced to perfection. All the expectations that they had were met. And so it was kind of like buy the rumor, sell the news. And that's why it didn't really go anywhere. In fact, it kind of sold off because everyone's like, cool. It wasn't disastrous. It wasn't like knock out of the park, but it was a very, very great earnings report, and everyone was happy. So they sold into it, and now we just wait again for the next something. And again, the market's kind of just tired. But look at this from a Moxie perspective. You guys see how price is over the hourly 50? And notice how the Moxie indicator is below 0. That's an inverse trampoline move. That is not a long setup. And in fact, you could see in through this whole area, notice how the Moxie indicator was below 0 and continues to be below 0. So there's really just no setup here. It just continues to tell me that the market and big names like this need to rest, and that's what's happening. And then if you look at AMD, I think I mentioned this one in some video over the week, and you can see the same kind of deal. Massive, absolutely massive run up on AMD. A great job for it, but look what it did. It went right into its previous all-time high. Of course that's going to be some natural resistance as price comes up in there. So I think it should be very expected that this just wasn't going to keep running like that. If anything, let it rest, let it recoup, let it pull back, let it flag, let it do something until the next time it's ready to go. And that's where I'm kind of seeing the whole market is the whole market was on an absolute tear from the tariff tantrum lows they all ran up like this, and the market just doesn't go up forever, and now we're in kind of this area where we have to rest. Now, whether that goes sideways or down, we don't know, but it's in rest mode. And look at the Moxie indicator. This, and remember, we have that sale going on. Labor Day sale this week. If you guys don't have the Moxie indicator, if you're looking at this and being like, wow, that indicator is looking pretty good, maybe I should pick it up. This is a great time because not only is the indicator for sale, the class is for sale, and everything else that I teach is on sale right now. But look here. You see here, that was, I think, just after earnings, had a price popped up. Look what it did. Price over the 50. Notice how the Moxie indicator was below zero. That is not a bullish setup. And so that told you that price was likely to come back down. How about this? The price tried again to get over the hourly 50. Notice where the Moxie indicator is. Not set up. If anything, this was a bear flag. And the Moxie indicator was helping to tell you that. This is just more stuff, more indication to use the Moxie indicator and tell you that this just isn't ready to go yet. And you need to be okay with that. Just let things chill. Not everything goes up all the time. And if your trades aren't working and you're kind of like pulling your hair out and you don't know why, this is why. This is why. And the Moxie indicator is telling us that. We're seeing that with the indexes, and we're seeing that with the major tickers. Okay? So if you guys need help with the Moxie indicator, be sure to sign up. This is the kind of stuff so that you can have a better lens and a better insight into what the market is doing and what the individual tickers are doing so that you're not surprised. All right, guys. Thanks again. Enjoy your long weekend, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Take care.